moving to Arkansas really was a huge step for us because we really were encouraged by the music that was here. We liked the Christian values, and it exposed us to musicians who were able to teach our kids how to play this style of music as well. My interest in music came from my dad. My dad was a farmer in Nebraska, so we worked hard on the farm 6 days a week, but my dad loved to play music. And so a lot of times Sunday afternoons he'd invite over some friends, they'd bring over a banjo, guitar, harmonica, and they'd just sit for hours on Sunday afternoon after church and play music.
We just really loved music, Randy and I, and we'd just even sit down with a guitar lots of evenings and just play music.
And so we started playing music together and got our kids interested in music as well at an early age.
We just really felt like, farming was great and we enjoyed working together, working with Randy's dad and stuff, but we really felt like there was something more that God was calling us to. The
biggest leap of faith that we took was when we had a farm sale and left the farm because my dad wanted me to take over the family farm, but I felt like God was calling me to something else. And so we ended up moving to Arkansas, and Ruth Ann and I had 5 kids, and here we were moving our family of 5 little kids, not really knowing what we're going to do, but just going out in faith and trusting that God would open up some doors for us. And I remember times when we went through some very hard times, didn't have enough money, or just feel like we weren't getting anywhere. Just say, God, I know you have a plan, I know you have a purpose, and we're just going to stick to it and see how you orchestrate our lives to bring glory to you.
We just didn't have the money behind it, to get us through the hard times, so things really fell through. And we ended up just really feeling like we'd failed. Didn't have a house, just lived with the kids in a little pop-up camper for a few weeks. We were just down to nothing.
We were going to church in Branson, and the owners of a place called Mutton Hollow just said they were looking for some maintenance help. And so we went to apply for a job for maintenance, found out they were also taking auditions for entertainment. So we brought our family in to audition for musical entertainment, and they liked us, and so they gave us a job just on Sundays, kind of performing as a feature band with another band that was playing there as well. Well, we were a pretty big hit, and so they actually hired us full-time, singing there then 5 days a week the next year. I remember getting that first job, we were just jumping around the house, just so excited about the opportunity to finally be a part of a family ministry full-time. It was really huge for us. So that was really the big step for us, because now we were able to play gospel music in a theme park, and people were coming to us instead of us having to travel somewhere else or going a long distance. And so it also gave the kids an opportunity to practice their instruments and to learn music and to be on the stage. And so it was a really neat opportunity. It was just a real blessing for us to have that open door.
I remember when I was a kid, practicing wasn't like my favorite thing to do. So sometimes they had to make us do it. But then when we had to get up on stage and they're like, oh, this has to be good, because people are going to listen to it, then it made it more exciting.
I played harmonica when I first started playing an instrument. Mostly I just sang back then. But then I also played spoons for a while. I think I even played some sticks, just kind of beat them together for percussion or something. It was kind of lame, but that's really all I could do back then.
And if the Lord makes you a plumber, be a plumber for the Lord.
I had a blast. I really loved to sing and meet people. I would just sit and talk with people for hours, and everybody would be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, they asked me questions.
It wasn't really until we started playing music as a band that I really developed a sense of what its purpose was and how you can communicate through music and what its potential was, what God designed it for.
And God created us to create, and it's really neat to be reinforced in that area. A lot of times we look at a job as being something we have to go to and endure through. God really delights in seeing us enjoy our work. And we have been so blessed to be able to experience what we do. I mean, I would have never dreamed that I could really spend time with my wife, my family, and to sing about my Lord. It's been a dream come true for me.
Felt the fear
We've just really enjoyed being able to share our lives together, and homeschooling was a big part of that. Ruth Ann really poured herself into their lives at a young age, teaching them Christian values and using Christian curriculum, and just instilling that God was an important part of everyday life.
You know, when they studied about the world, it wasn't about, you know, what evolved. It was about what God created. You know, how God had a perfect plan, you know, and just put it all together.
I loved being homeschooled. I was passionate about reading. I was one of those who would get textbooks a month before school started, and I'd have them all read by the time school actually started.
I really liked being homeschooled because we got to spend all day with our family, and they were always my favorite people. And it only took us like a few hours to do it in the morning, and then we'd just go play the rest of the day. But then once we were playing at Mutton Hollow and did like 4 to 7 sets a day, we had to do it in between. And so we'd go sing for half an hour, and then we'd come back and do school for half an hour, and then go. So we just try to get them like one subject done in between each set.
Being homeschooled has taught me to follow my passions. You know, everybody has something they're good at, and I've always wanted to excel in music, not just be something that I do, but really become the best at it.
It was fun to travel and see different places. When we were younger, we took a lot of field trips, so we would go to like presidents' homes and the St. Louis Arch, you know, just like everything we went to. So it was really fun to like be able to read in our history books and then actually see it in person, you know.
Yeah, I really enjoyed being a mom, being with the kids. I miss it. You know, it was just a really growing time for us. Just at a place where I felt like God was just really using me, right in the place where He'd just prepared me for, you know? It was a good thing.
We've poured our lives into our family, and they have totally rewarded us because of that. You invest time into your kids, and you get to this place now where they're adults, and you see them actually enjoying to be with mom and dad. It's so neat to be able to watch your children grow and to mature, and to see the different personalities that God, you know, gives to each one, and how they then bring that into the family, and even our band, how each one can write different styles of music and different lyrics to songs, and just the bond that there is there.
Family is always, you know, has been key. It's been the basis of our band. Even before, you know, being a band, we have always tried to be a family. We have always tried to get along and to make sure our relationships are right.
I just open them up to receive the message we're going to bring. Oh, we love you, and just thank you now for this food you provided, and bless it to our bodies. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
There's pictures of them. They're up in the mountains. And there's a picture of them all standing on
That's easy.
Thank you, God. No chance of that.
Do it. Fire up.
We travel about 200 days of the year. We're away from home. Most of what we do is on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Packing up and getting on the road. It can get old sometimes.
Traveling gets tiring, but the music more than makes up for it.
We want to be a band that God calls and that we go, no matter what. And so big numbers, small numbers, it's the same for us. We're there to communicate what God has put on our heart.
We get to the place where we're playing and get out and set up all of our stuff and do a sound check.
I just really want people to know that there's a God that loves them, a God that's changed my life, and a God that can change their lives as well.
Somewhere in glory, you'll find me. You'll find me, yes, you'll find me.
Family was always really important to my parents. You know, the closeness, the openness with one another, the willingness to forgive, you know, just those open arms, just the love that they portrayed to us.
I feel blessed to have a family that cares about each other.
My parents have been a really wonderful example to all of us. It's so neat to just know that no matter what happens, they're going to stick together and they're going to stay together and they're going to love each other, you know, forever because they've made that commitment.
Just knowing that I have that because my parents showed it to me and they awakened something in my soul that I maybe wouldn't have seen without that.
Singing angels shouting through eternity.
You know, growing up as a child, I remember I was curious, and I would take things apart just to find out how they worked. And I remember the first time that I took apart a pocket watch and was fascinated as I looked inside and saw all of these pieces and parts, these very delicate springs and these small little gears that were all crafted in a particular way so that when they were put together and they were working all together, that it kept time. And you know, I think there's a great deal of fascination in the same way when we look at this story of the Franz family. And there's something within us that is in awe. And there's a joy that we feel within us and a warmth, actually, as we see, quite frankly, a system that is working well. And I think beyond that, there is a realization that it's working in the way that God designed it. You see, God didn't just capriciously come up with a family. When He designed the family, He created it in such a way that there were parts and there were pieces that were all to work together. He created the family so that there would be a husband who had a particular role, that there would be a wife, and she had a role as well, and children, and they played a role in all of this, and they were to be united together in this bond and this unity. And all of that was not just some capricious act of God, but again, it comes from the fact that God Himself is this socially complex God. Within Himself, three persons that make up the Godhead, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And they are in this perfect relationship with each other. There's an intimacy and a fellowship and this union that exists within God Himself. And so we see that as God Himself is in this unity, in this fellowship, that He desires for the family to do the same. And we see this as remember, Audra was talking about how this family, even in the hard times, they stick together. But additionally, we see how these parents as well are carrying out their role. Not only between themselves, where the husband is to love his wife and the wife is to respect her husband, but the parents also are to love and to train and to discipline their children. Remember when Emmett said that his parents had helped him to be able to follow how God had made him, how he had been crafted. John and I were referencing Proverbs 22 before. Train up a child in the way he should go, in the way he's bent, and he will not depart from that. And that's what we see happening with Randy and Ruth Ann as they are training up their children. Remember, Audra made that great statement where she said, "They have awakened something in my soul that I would not have found on my own." But there's something else that's going on here as well, something I think is very beautiful and we oftentimes miss. And that comes from Ephesians chapter 6. Let me read this to you. "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment, with a promise, that it may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth." Do you remember Randy was talking about how he and his wife had poured themselves into this family, and then he said, and they are rewarding us, that Randy was sensing the blessing that was coming as a result of his children who were now honoring their parents in all of this. You know, it's easy for us sometimes to get caught up in just the parents' responsibility. But oftentimes we lose sight of the fact that you can change this picture, this wonderful picture we see, you can change it very drastically if all of a sudden you have children who are rebellious, who are following their own ways, who are hateful. All of a sudden this watch starts to go bad. And John, this is the beauty we see carried out in the Franz family as they work towards God's design.
And they really do present an appealing picture of how God's design works. But Del, what about the families that say, boy, we want to obey God's design, but we sure don't look like that right now?
Well, I think the reality is that even Randy and Ruth Ann would say that their family isn't perfect. You know, they've had to work through struggles and so forth. All of us have imperfections. The important thing is that we keep our eye on God's design and work towards that, because God then promises a blessing when we do.
So even if we've moved away from it, there is often opportunity to move back to it.
Absolutely. There's always hope to move back.